So small waterproof Bluetooth speakers have been all the rage in recent years, and even the bigger ones have still been pretty easy to carry around. But now there's the UE Hyperboom, and this is nothing like the smaller cylindrical boom speakers that you're used to. This is something new. So you may already be familiar with some of UE's other speakers like the Boom and the Wonder Boom, but this looks a little bit different. This now has a square shape to it. It's no longer cylindrical. And it's also pretty freaking big, I'm not gonna lie. Not only is it big, it's also heavy at 5.9 kilograms. But it does have a built-in rubber strap for picking it up, which I found pretty useful. Now, of course, this is still a UE speaker, so there are some design elements that carry over that you're probably familiar with, like the plus and minus volume signs. Those are still here, they're just on top of the speaker instead of built into the fabric. Speaking of which, the fabric is IPX4 water resistant, and it's not waterproof like you'll find on the Wonder Boom. So taking this to the beach or to the pool isn't a problem, just don't submerge it. On the top, you'll also find the playback controls and the power button. So the flat top of the speaker is pretty much the perfect place to put your phone down when you're listening to music. But UE did something pretty clever here, which is that it only registers touch. So putting down the phone won't raise or lower the volume accidentally. You have to intentionally touch the volume. Now on one side there's the power button, and on the other side you have the input controls and the pause or play button. And the pause or play button does something really cool that I thought was a gimmick at first, but it's actually pretty useful, and it's called One Touch Music Control. So basically, once you're connected to the speaker, just download the UE app, and then once you go into the app, you can choose up to 4 playlists that will automatically play once you long press the play button. Now, right now, this is limited to Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Deezer, which is a bit unfortunate because I'm currently a Spotify user. But I do have some Apple Music playlists, so I hooked that up, and every time I would come home, just long press the play button and it would automatically play my playlist. It was just a pretty useful feature. I mean, it's not gonna change your life or anything, but instead of fumbling around with playlists, you could just long press the button and be listening to your music in a matter of seconds. Then there's the connections, and this is a really cool part of this speaker as well. Under the rubber flap along the spine, you get a USB output to charge your devices, a 3.5mm to hardwire in non-Bluetooth devices, and my personal favorite, an optical input. So why put an optical input on a Bluetooth speaker meant for the outdoors? Because you're not always outdoors. At least I hope not. Being able to just let this live next to my TV as like a pseudo soundbar when I'm not using it outside is one of my favorite features. Sure, it's not a great soundbar and you're not getting Dolby Atmos or anything like that, but it is an instant upgrade to the crappy built-in speakers on my TCL TV. Now, as far as Bluetooth is concerned, it is a bit of a bummer here because there is no high quality codecs to choose from. You don't get aptX, you don't get Sony's LDAC, none of that. On the bright side though, UE did come up with another really clever solution to a problem that I have at parties all the time. So you know when you're connected to a speaker, you're playing music, and then your friend wants to play a song and they want to connect to the speaker as well. So there's like this weird shuffle where you have to disconnect from the speaker and then they have to pair to the speaker and all the music stops in the party. Basically, that doesn't happen here because UE put 2 Bluetooth inputs onto this speaker. So while I'm connected to the first Bluetooth input playing music, a friend can come and connect to the second Bluetooth input in the background without interfering with my playlist at all. So as you'd expect with a speaker of this size, battery life is also insanely good here. UE claims that you'll get 24 hours of constant playback with 50% volume, and about 3 hours of constant playback on max volume. Now this speaker gets pretty loud, so I couldn't test it on max volume, but I did test it on 50% volume, and I got pretty close to that at 22 hours and 14 minutes. Now unless you're actually outdoors, like at the beach, or maybe if you're powering the party for a giant warehouse rave in Brooklyn, I don't see too many people actually using this on 100% volume because it gets pretty loud, and 50% volume was more than enough for my apartment. So now this is a speaker, so let's talk sound. How does the UE Hyperboom actually sound? And it sounds pretty good, except just a little bit too bassy for my liking, but it is meant for parties, so that makes sense. But there is another little trick here that UE added in, which is called adaptive EQ. And just like the Google Home Max and the Apple HomePod, there's a tiny microphone on top of this speaker that listens to what's going on around it and adjusts itself accordingly. Now, of course, you can't always go into the app and turn it off completely and EQ the sound yourself, but I found it was pretty good and I had no problems with it. So the speaker has dual 114mm woofers, so the bass is nice and loud, and as you can see from the frequency response graph, there is a good amount of emphasis in the lows all the way down to about 60 Hertz before dropping off. This made the bass line in the song question mark, I'm not joking, that's actually the name, by Eden, really rumble its way through the song in a way that remained easy to hear and intact even when using the speaker outdoors. When it comes to the mids and highs, I also didn't have too many issues. Vocals came through well enough, and the 2 25mm tweeters did a good job at handling the highs too. Hi-hats and cymbals didn't come across super loud and clear, which you can hear in You Only Live Once by The Strokes, where the shakes throughout the chorus seem kind of distant and a little muted, but they also never became harsh, which is really good with a speaker of this size that gets so loud. You won't get the same level of clarity that you're used to from something like a soundbar, but even at high volumes there was no distortion, which you can't say for all Bluetooth speakers designed for outdoor use. So should you get the UE Hyperboom speaker? That really depends, because one thing we haven't spoken about yet is the price, and this thing will run you $399. Now, while the Hyperboom is a really fantastic speaker and it fills a void that UE was missing in their lineup in the giant speakers that you can have Project X style parties with, I'm not entirely sure if it's worth $399 considering you can get a couple smaller speakers for that. Even if you want to stick within the Ultimate Ears family and don't want to look at any JBL products, which like the Flip and the Charge 4 are all really good speakers, you can get like 2 UE booms for the price of one of these and still have some money left over. Now this is a really well put together speaker, and UE made a lot of clever, unique tweaks to make this a pretty useful speaker day to day. I'm just not sure that anyone outside of people throwing Project X style parties should get it. If you wanted a super portable Bluetooth speaker to bring to the beach, there's the UE Wonderboom. If you live in a dorm or you just want a regular Bluetooth speaker to throw in your bag for your next tropical getaway, there's the UE Boom series. But if you want a giant speaker, you have to get the Hyperboom. It's pretty much the only way to go, assuming you have the money to blow. And that should pretty much do it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you want to know more about this particular speaker, make sure to check out the full review over at SoundGuys.com. While you're here, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And also, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, we're @RealSoundGuys. I'm Adam Molina, happy listening.